do you feel that they were very sexualized though, these four characters? Or, I mean, how do you feel? Because I know there's been kind of a lot of back and forth about especially the lady.
I think they hit it pretty close to perfect, to be honest. Because I think straight away, the second people saw her, they went instant classic. That is seared into the history of gaming now. And then so just from the look, you go, wow. And she's just she's tall, and she's just looks awesome and beautiful and cool. The dress actually it fits to sort of like the time period that they're talking about. The hat is awesome. The tropiness of the sort of extends more to the daughters of them being psycho man-eaters. Is sort of a female trope. But she was just too good to be criticized, to be honest. And mainly the writing is awesome. Like when she's chasing you, goes, "You disgusting man."
Yeah.
And it's all down to the actress Maggie Robertson, who plays her. She has been all over everything since then, because she's got this. She just hit it perfectly with that voice. That was a career-making performance from her, and she's just been on every single podcast and show reading tweets and things in her voice, and it's the disdain, everything. Yeah, I think they whatever sexualization or tropiness, I think they were able to overcome it enough to get a pass.
Yeah.
In that regard.
I think it's interesting because before I played the game, I'd seen the character, and before I'd played the game, I'd seen the fan adaptions to the character, and so which were very sexualized, and my interpretation of the character before I played the game was really negative, and I was like, oh, she's just basically a big set of boobs, and that's it, and there's some weird fetishy thing going on regarding the fact that she's so tall, and the whole thing just felt really like, yeah. But when I actually played the game, as you say, all of that just went away. That isn't what her character is at all. She's a lot more, and of all of the characters, I think of all of the sort of scary boss creatures, she was one of my favorites, because she was the most, to use a pun, she was the most fleshed out of them all, and I felt, I don't know, maybe I spent more time in her area because it was at the start and I was still learning my way around, so maybe I just spent more time with her effectively, but I just felt much more connected to her story than I did to any of the others.
I wanted to know everything. I was curious. I wanted to know everything about them, and then they just didn't have. That was so you've got like good games, then you've got amazing games, and then you've got those sort of transcendent games. And she was up in that transcendent quality, but the rest of the game wasn't, to me.
Yeah,
that's why I think that, and she captured so many imaginations.
Yeah,
I think that's why that area was the most engaging. And they put it at the start. They should have put it at the end.
Yeah. It was excellent. Okay, shall we move on to one of the other ones? I can't remember who came next. Was it the Doll's House?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So that was. We've got a picture of her as well. Donna Beneviento. Yeah, and she's creepy, dull, scary. I wasn't really clear on whether the thing that we were dealing with was the woman or the doll, actually. I felt like it was like the two were very tied together. I think she had a skill that meant that she could make these dolls come alive and do scary things. And that was I don't want to. I'm conscious of like giving anything away, but there's.
We'll have this as
yeah,
a spoiler thing.
Yeah, that
you
was
can do spoilers
because that's the one with the big baby, isn't it?
Yeah.
That crawls around. That was. I mean, you said you wanted to know some of my scariest moments, and yeah, that was one of my scariest moments. I don't know why it was so terrifying, because it was also ridiculous. Slightly comical. This giant scary baby. Oh yes. It wasn't like that in my head. So yeah, no, this baby just crawling around after. Oh yeah. Anyway, it was horrifying.
And it crying.
Yes, and then you had to go and I had to hide under a bed. And again, that was a new mechanic, this idea that hiding, I really liked that, hiding and running, and because they taught you about running and avoiding fights. I think in that first scene, in this one, you definitely ran away from it and had to sort of lure it around, and that was a really fun kind of game scene. So yeah.
Have you heard of a game called Outlast?
Outlast.
That's one of the most horrifying games ever. You go into this mental asylum that's had this sort of outbreak of everyone going completely insane, and you're a reporter, and you had a whistleblower leak something about it to about experiments and stuff.
My connection has gone.
Can you hear me, Jem?
Yes, I can now. It's just
darn internet.
Yes.
So what I was saying is Outlast is terrifying and that kind of thing, and that's that perpetual terror thing. My favorite and scariest moment is probably that baby, because I like the sort of the horrifying element of horror, right? Because that's where the real creative skill comes in. It's easy to go "Whoa!" and scare someone, but to make someone think that is really sick and make them go "ugh," that's what that gave me.
Yeah,
and it was just that was really brilliant.
Have you read any Clive Barker?
No, I haven't.
Okay, if you like sort of gross horror, then that is exactly up. Then Clive Barker's exactly up your street. I would recommend starting with Weave World. I would recommend anyone read Weave World, actually. It's an awesome book. So there you go. So it's the fish guy next, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mario. Yeah. What did you think about this one?
I thought it was a bit lame, but it was just it felt like they were trying to go in different directions, but weren't really. I can't imagine the stress that comes with building a game based on such a long-running and beloved series. But it just felt like it wasn't horrible, and everything in Biohazard was disgusting and gross and sick. And they didn't really. They didn't go in that direction with this, but they didn't seem to go in a really committal horror direction. And again, it's all about just mothers and weird children.
Yeah,
and it just felt like that didn't really stick with me for most of it. It just
I've lost track of where we were now.
We just talked about Morrow.
Yes, I did like the mechanics in the whole fish scene where you had to run across the all the woods, floating.
That was a good puzzle
and stuff. That was kind of fun, and also the timing of everything. I spent got quite sweary then, because I was like flicking switches and then missing my jumps and things. So that was quite fun. But that whole section just felt a bit sort of, we don't really know what to do, so we're just going to shove this little bit in here. I didn't really connect with the boss fight. I didn't really feel like I didn't really feel in fear for my life at any point. It was generally okay. Do you know what? I've completely missed one of the other boss fights, which is with like a big sort of giant creature. Do you remember that one?
The werewolf one?
Yes.
At the start.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that. No. It just sort of came out of nowhere and sort of went, okay.
No, because there was this werewolf, there was a waves werewolf thing, wasn't there, when you're in a big building and there's all these and the monsters just coming at you. That I found just exhausting. I was just got to the end of that and I was just like, but that's kind of the constant threat thing that I think a little hint of that you were talking about, I think, in that scene. And it was really fun. And I did feel accomplished when I got to the end of it. I did feel like, oh, I've done this and I've accomplished something. And I think there were a couple of fights in the whole game where I did really feel like, yes, I've done it. And actually going back to the lady at her final fight, I had no trouble with it and killed her the first time I did it. And I don't know, maybe my years of World of Warcraft have just made me think that a boss fight should require days of effort. But yeah, I killed her more, and I was a bit surprised that she died when she died. And I was kind of like, oh, I was expecting more, because that was the first boss fight of the game. And I think as the game went on, I became much more laid back about the boss fights. And actually it was more the little mobs, little things jumping out at you throughout the game that became problematic and challenging and scary. But there were some fights where I got to the end of it and I felt like, yeah, that was good. I did good then. And that required a lot of attention and focus. And I think it was after that very long lots of waves one that I then took a bit of a break, because I was like, oh, this is just going to get harder and harder.
I think my favourite boss was the propeller monster.
Yeah.
That was a work of genius. That was horrible.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, actually, talking of like scary moments, I think it was all of those guys just hanging, these robot guys, sort of cyborg guys, hanging in this big factory and having to go through. There was like one room where you had to go through and they're all lined up on the side. That scared me. And then there was another room where you went in and you could see bodies laying on trolleys, and I was just like, I'm not going in that room. I'm just not going in that room. That's it. End the game. And I spent a lot of time, and my husband was watching me at the time, and he was like, go on, go in. I was like, nope, not going in there. I'm not going in there. They're going to get up and they're going to get me. And that's really reminds me of the old school Resident Evil, that fear, that like, I don't want to go in there. I know what's going to happen. And, didn't quite go down how I thought it was going to go down, but it was still a lot of blood and gore.
I'll send you a clip of the Let's Play that I watched of Outlast and see what you think. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think I would like to. I mean, I did play Silent Hill, but that's a much more psychological horror, although there's quite a lot of scary things in there as well. And I found Silent Hill a little bit too scary, actually. I did find that was the sort of game I didn't feel able to play on my own. Resident Evil The Village, I played because the PlayStation 5 has got, I don't know if this is a new thing. I'd never noticed it on the other one, but it's got like, maybe I just didn't need it before, but it's got a thing so you can plug your headphones into the controller. So I had my headphones plugged into the controller. So I was very immersed in it, and the sound quality is fantastic. So when you're walking around, you hear sounds off in the distance, and I kept thinking that there were like people, cars arriving at my house, or people walking into the room, because the sounds in the game were so real, and that did make quite a big difference actually to the whole immersive experience. Obviously, I mean, but it
I
just
have to start doing that, because it's got 3D audio, so they somehow managed, with sound coming this way, they can make it sound like there's someone behind you.
Yeah, exactly. And it is just, yeah, it's a good way. I mean, it's also a scary way to play, because when you're that wound up, then you're like, what's that noise? What was that noise? And so, I was playing. I mean, I played a lot of it on my own in the lounge. But yeah, there were a couple of times when my cat jumped on me and scared the life out of me and things like that. I was clearly very tense. Okay, so Heisenberg. What do you think about Heisenberg?
Just again, I think what you said earlier, it felt like what you made me think of was padding. It felt like a lot of it felt like padding quality material. So again, I just didn't really. The only thing wanted to. They should have done the entire game with Lady Dimitrescu as the big bad.
Yeah.
And then just built it from there.
Yeah.
Rather than having her as the little thing, and this Mother Miranda who you don't really care about, who all it comes down to is she's trying to resurrect her daughter, which doesn't even work.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we talked before we started recording about how that is so tropey, this whole idea of like this person who's, this woman who's lost her baby and has gone mad and will do anything and hurt anyone, all costs. And I suppose it's counteracted by, as you said, that Ethan is running around looking for his baby. So, there is that, but it did feel a bit, it's just a bit cliche, isn't it? And she's gone, because she's lost her child, she has wreaked so much havoc and pain on all of these people and all of these children. And I think it's to me, it feels very disrespectful actually to so many women who experience that sort of thing. And I think it's it's the same as the sort of evil stepmother trope. There are lots of women who are dealing with challenging situations, and then to take it and turn it into a scary monster so easily, it's just lazy. Really, it's lazy writing, it's lazy storyline. But it does feed in, it's a very classic trope, and it did fit. It did give them a hook to hang all of this on. But yeah, I really didn't care about Miranda. I really didn't. And I think, again, they could have made her much more culty. And I think it could have been more, I felt like the fact that all the villagers die off in the first few scenes of the game, I just felt like it, I don't know, I felt like I wanted something more long term rather than this relatively simplistic story in the end. So yeah, I think I got a picture of Miranda and Heisenberg actually, but
Miranda, where are you, Miranda?
I don't mind skipping Heisenberg.
Yeah,
and that's the Duke. He was horrible.
Yeah. This is such a difficult interface to use. So last
there
time.
we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't stand out to me. That's not memorable. I'd forgotten what she looked like.
Yeah. 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 It just didn't. Yeah. I think they let themselves down, and that's Heisenberg with his massive hammer.
It's Heisenberg and Lady Dimitrescu were the only two things that I could remember what they looked like.
I did like his area. I liked the factory. I spent a huge amount of time there because it was in the middle of the factory that I took a bit of a break. and then I came back to it because it's a bit of a maze and it's quite complicated. I got very, very confused and had to spend an hour trying to like realign myself with what was going on and what I had to do. So if anyone takes a break, I would not advise doing it in the middle of the factory. And I did definitely feel there were the jumpy moments there, and there was quite a lot going on there that I felt it felt there was a scale to that whole section that I think was missing in some of the other areas. So yeah, I think that was my second favorite sort of area. And then I think that the final yeah, so then you end up playing Chris. What was that
Well, that's
about?
a massive. This is one. So some of my gripes. So at the start, they kill the Mia who's Miranda in disguise, and then they go, "Oh well, that was easy. We won't make sure we've killed her. We won't incinerate her instantly. We'll just hit Ethan in the face and not tell him anything,
Yeah,
and take him to the same place, and then lose Miranda." That's stupid, because they could have all of this could be solved with just if this is what pisses me off the most about so many things, that they could have been solved with one conversation.
yeah,
Because Chris could have just come up to Ethan and said, "Look, that's Mother Miranda. We need to kill her." And then they could have done it, emptied every single weapon they had into it, killed it dead, and then everything would have been fine.
yeah.
So that's instantly terrible plan. And then every time Ethan, because he meets him at the swamp area,
Yeah, he had
and he goes,
options.
"You don't
Opportunity
know
to tell
what's
him,
going
didn't he?
on,
Yeah.
idiot." And then he meets him again and goes, "Now I'll tell you the plan." Could have just told him earlier. And
Yeah.
I've written down Chris needs to spend less time in the gym and more time in the planning room.
I think that is so true. That is exactly how I felt. I was just like, why didn't he tell him this at the beginning? Why is he now telling him about it all now? You know, what did he think he was going to do in this psychotic space? It's not like, oh, you know, damn it, Ethan, why didn't you just stay at home? It was like they brought him there and then they just abandoned him in this place full of werewolves and scary creatures. It just, yeah, the whole thing.
It's stupid decision to just at the end go, "Oh yeah, you have been playing as this meek little man, and now we're going to let you play as the biggest badass spec ops leader expert in this, and his special spec ops team with air support and everything," thinking that's just a few hours after you arrive.
Yeah.
So really, you could have just said, "Why didn't we just send these people in?" They would have.
Yeah.
They could have done it in there, because then it just turns into a Call of Duty.
Yeah, but why did they even have that section in the middle? I mean, what do you what do you think was their reasoning for even having that sudden player switch? I mean,
I think they ran out of ideas and thought, "Shit, it's only 6 hours long. We need to add another 2 hours on." It just felt like they just either if they did it on purpose, then that was a stupid idea. But if they didn't do it on purpose, they did it as padding.
yeah,
Then that's less their fault. I feel more when there's a sort of a decision that doesn't quite make sense, doesn't hit in any way, that I just go, oh. Because a lot of the time, people in those studios, they'll have an idea like that and they'll go, "Yes, I like it. We'll stick with it." And that doesn't always work out.
No,
unless it's a game like God of War, in which case it works out
brilliantly,
flawlessly.
But there you go. But they can't all be brilliant. I think you're right. I mean, I just think they just were looking for padding. I think they were looking for some way to segue between the where they brought Ethan up to and then the ending of it. But it was extremely jarring. It didn't work for me. I did find it quite fun to be running around in the same area but with loads of bullets. That was kind of cool. But even then, it was, I mean, I had repeatedly had to do the waves of werewolves. That where they kept coming over a wall and you were like trying to blow up the tower, and I found that I got quite cross with that. That was the only bit in the game where I just kept dying. Up until that point I'd basically been fine on everything, and I was playing on, what did they call it at the end? You were laughing at me because I got like a standard or something.
Yeah, that was it.
Standard player.
I thought they'd rated your gameplay.
Yeah, standard.
Adequate to finish. Just about adequate.
Yeah. So yeah, they yeah, so I didn't really get, and then suddenly you switch back to Ethan, and yeah, it just felt like the whole ending just felt very, but I have to say, I almost always feel that almost every single horror film has a rubbish ending. It's like nobody's quite worked out how to finish these things, and it's fair enough, because the level of trauma, the amount of dead bodies, the physical mess left behind, is always very difficult to explain and deal with. So I think they just kind of go, oh, we'll just pretend that didn't happen and move on, or we'll just nuke the city. Or, I mean, that's how most of the Resident Evils end, is them just dropping a nuke on the area. So
that's where the true skill of narrative design and writing comes in, because you need to games that are like you can have games like The Witcher, which are 100 hours long, and it needs to build up. You need to make the story so that whatever happens at the end, you want to know it. You want to know it. You want to know it. And in God of War, that goal is to reach the highest mountain in all the realms. A very simple, clear goal. And you're doing it because you need to take your dead mother's ashes to the top of it, because that's where she said you wanted them to be spread. And that goal, it captures you at the very start. So you think, I will go anywhere and do anything in order to get this to the top of the mountain. And then the skill is in making you care so much that that story carries you forward. Because if they've made this, like, the story can make or break a game. It's what turns because gameplay loops, that's what all games are. So in God of War, it's fight, explore, build relationships with your son. And so if you take all the story out of that, then it can be just like any other game. But that's when you put the story in to make you care and feel powerful and motivated through every battle. I feel like, again, that's something in the story aspect that was missed, because it was simple. It was find daughter, and we've got to pad between losing his daughter and finding his daughter.
And also they walk a line, don't they, between mystical, magical, and scientific, evil. And I think sometimes they get a little bit confused as to what,
like Ethan's made of mold.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Flies, mold or flies. So I think that is problematic in their world. I think it doesn't help with all of that, and I think it also disconnects you as a player from that, because it doesn't quite there isn't that consistency. So I think that's an issue. And so do you feel, and this is the final thing, because I think we need to wrap up, although I feel like we could probably talk about this for another hour. But do you feel that, I don't know whether I'm just thinking, like, if I think about this, is this a male or a female game? I don't mean as in, like, I just feel like if you were to gender this game, would you gender it, or do you feel like it's got a balance, or do you feel, because I have a feeling that it's quite a masculine game, I think, because the two playable characters are male, because it's quite tropey female anti-female tropes, and yeah, because even though they have these strong female characters, they're just kind of angry, screamy women. There
all
wasn't
about family.
Yeah.
So I went. That's an interesting question because we've asked before, like, is there such thing as a feminist game? And that's kind of hard to do. I just had a thought. So maybe we have a scale. So we've got games that advance and display the feminist direction that can move the needle towards feminism and inclusivity and that expansive side, which is what we want to do at Gaming the System. There are games that look backwards and are still perpetuate stereotypes and the male-centric everything and damsel in distress like Mia in this game, and the baby that could be counted as a damsel in distress. So that would be moving backwards. The other side is moving forwards, and then in the middle there's just the average one, which just wants to sit in the middle and go, "Oh, look, you can play as a strong female character, but you can also choose to play a male character as well, so that we're scared of people not buying the game, even though."
Yeah.
It's not like there aren't massively successful games led by women now, and it's just stupid old stuff. So then I feel like this one sits in the middle because it's because it's one of the biggest things ever. It's going to be very corporate led, which stops creative people taking creative risks.
Yeah.
So this it feels like it's sat in the middle. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's a little bit to the patriarchal side of the middle, but yeah, I would agree. I think it's definitely in that middle range. We should score all the games that we.
That's such a good idea. Very.
Well,
we need to come up with the right terminology,
for
the different.
Because I don't want it. I mean, I said, is it masculine or like female? I'm not even using the word feminine, but I don't like. I mean, there's a whole issue around binary genders anyway, so I don't want to encourage more of that, but I think it would definitely be something that we could have a think about. And
that's definitely what I'm interested to try and talk about this on the challenge with the system, the episode I'll be hosting, seeing if I can we can flesh that out then.
Good.
I have one final honourable mention when Ethan goes to pull that switch, and then there's a and Lady Dimitrescu is there. I love that bit made me laugh. And that dungeon area with those creepy things. That's quite creepy. But I just went up if you go up the steps, they don't follow you up, so I just stood there and
there were a couple of places where you could do that. So, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's that game mechanics kicks in, and then
without the story, so you sort of go just going through the motions.
Yeah, definitely worth playing though. Absolutely,
it's good fun.
Yeah,
not an imperfect game, but fun nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening to us deep dive into Resident Evil. And please like, share, subscribe, review us, comment, tell us what you'd like to hear more of and what you'd like to hear less of, but be nice because we're people with feelings. And we'll see you next time.